From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Morning Edition.
A Pacific storm called Hillary threatens to bring catastrophic flooding. It's now churning towards Mexico's Baja Peninsula as a hurricane and will likely become a tropical storm as it reaches Southern California. Dozens of dogs were flown in from fire-ravaged areas in Maui to give them new homes here in the Bay Area. We hear about the rescue group that brought them here, despite that organization's own overcrowding. Cruise agrees to slash its San Francisco operations in half, while the DMV looks into whether the robo-taxi company should even be operating in the city in the first place. All of this after a collision with a fire truck. Good morning. It is Saturday, August 19th. I'm Devin Feely. Let's go ahead and start with a quick check of our weather with First Alert meteorologist Paul Hagan.
A quiet start to the weekend around the Bay Area. Of course, we have Hillary down to our south, but this little ripple in the atmosphere off the coast, the remnants of a different tropical system, Eugene. It's just been hanging out for basically the past couple of weeks. Of course, the moisture, the wind energy with Hillary tracking into Southern California, especially tomorrow. But the remnants of Eugene will help to guide the impacts of Hillary away from the Bay Area. Outside chance of showers on Monday, a noticeable increase in humidity. That's going to be about it. Temperatures today topping out about 2 to 4 degrees above average, mostly 80s and 90s inland.
Millions of Americans are under the state's first ever tropical storm warning as Hurricane Hillary turns towards Mexico's Baja Peninsula as a Category 4 storm with winds reaching 130 miles an hour. It's expected to make landfall this evening, and later the same system could bring more than a year's worth of rain to parts of California, Nevada, and Arizona. Communities in Southern California are scrambling to get ready. Michelle Guile shows us how Orange County is preparing for a rare tropical storm.
Rolls of plastic are put in place as a precaution on the unstable slope below San Clemente's beloved cultural center, Casa Romantica. 2 recent landslides have severely damaged parts of the historic property, and the concern is that this latest storm could cause further damage.
We're expecting a good amount of rainfall as the storm approaches us, in addition to some wind and storm surge and other things, but in particular the rainfall. If that rain soaks in, it will destabilize this slope. That's what we've seen before, is when it gets very wet, it starts to slough off and go down the hillside.
Here's an example of that happening in April. Tons of dirt and debris fell, which impacted the train tracks, forcing a closure. Officials hope to avoid that this time. Just to the south of Casa Romantica is another area of concern. It's called Cotton's Point. There is plastic going down on a hillside that recently slid. This is near the spot where the train tracks have been pounded by heavy surf.
Hillary, go away. Don't come back. Yeah, so we're just going to build up all of the sandbags and they're going to extend much higher.
Rosie Ritchie is listening to the forecast and using sandbags to fortify the front of her Seal Beach restaurant that sits on the beach adjacent to the San Gabriel River jetty. Just over a year ago, a storm sent water crashing over the rocks and into the beach house.
They're going to go to the fire station and we're going to just start packing them everywhere at all of our openings, right below the patio, so that hopefully it will keep the water from coming in.
Seal Beach crews have built an emergency berm as further protection. A second mini berm is up next to the pier to keep large surf and storm surge from flooding beachfront homes. Several sandbag stations are in place throughout town. Lifeguards will focus on prevention and keeping inexperienced swimmers and surfers out of the ocean during the storm.
We have a look back at the last time a tropical storm hit California. It was 84 years ago, September of 1939. A storm dumped 11 inches of rain with winds up to 65 miles per hour. Beach communities were flooded. The storm destroyed boats and washed away homes from Huntington Beach to Malibu. The LA River spilled its banks and downtown was under 3 feet of water. 93 people were killed in that storm. President Biden says his administration is keeping a close eye on Hurricane Hillary's movement, and FEMA has a team and supplies in Southern California to respond as needed. In Sacramento, Cal OES says it learned valuable lessons from all of the atmospheric rivers last winter. It's ready to send swift water rescue teams as well as equipment to Southern California. The Coast Guard is also ready to respond for rescues in the ocean and in inland waterways and channels. But they say obviously it is better to avoid a rescue, so emergency alerts will be critical.
During a time like this, our search and rescue capabilities will degrade as the storm worsens.
Now, meantime, Caltrans crews are working around the clock, placing water pumps in flood-prone areas and clearing storm drains of debris. And while Southern California prepares for a tropical storm, there is still a major disaster response in progress in Maui. Officials say about 60% of the disaster area from last week's deadly fires has now been searched. The confirmed death toll is 114, but is expected to keep growing. For many Lahaina residents, the trauma is just starting to sink in.
A lot of us haven't even had time to grieve. I mean, we're just slowly getting out of the survivor mode.
The head of Maui's emergency management agency resigned on Thursday, citing health reasons. He has defended a decision not to activate warning sirens as that fire swept towards Lahaina. Maui's mayor plans to name a replacement soon. Now, the devastation on Maui has animal shelters there filled to capacity with injured and evacuated pets. As Betty Yu shows us, rescuers are helping some animals that no longer have homes in Maui to find places to live here in the Bay Area instead.
Friday night, a plane carrying very special passengers landed at Hayward Executive Airport. 40 cats and dogs from the Maui Humane Society. These animals were already in shelters or in foster homes on the island at the time of the disaster.
When the fire happened, we knew we needed to do something. Because all the shelters are full, it was going to be a bigger project than just one organization.
Jeffrey Zerwick, executive director with Berkeley Humane, helped organize a coalition of 6 local animal welfare groups, including the East Bay SPCA and Marin Humane, to help transport shelter animals to find new loving homes in the Bay Area. They partnered with Greater Good Charities to arrange the flight. The shelters here are already full, but Jeffrey says collectively they can absorb the extra animals to create room for an influx of injured or displaced pets on the island.
By moving those animals here, that gives the animal welfare teams in Maui the opportunity to take a breath, regroup, and start building the long-term recovery programs that people are going to need there in order to take care of their pets.
Steve Ferguson with the Friends of the Alameda Animal Shelter said they're full to the brim with animals.
Our current situation is we've got a handful of kennels available that aren't occupied. We rely heavily on our foster community to get them out of the shelter and into homes until we can get them adopted. And even that is becoming stretched.
Berkeley Humane said next weekend it's hosting the single largest adoption event in the state, where the animals from Hawaii will be available and most fees will be waived.
It makes me feel very proud. I mean, we don't get into animal welfare to do anything other than to save as many animals as we can.
This is really important work that we do. This also gives us an opportunity as a coalition to come together so that if there are more disasters in the area in the future, we are better prepared to support each other.
I wanted to introduce you to some of these animals. These puppies, their names are Frito and Tostito. This guy over here, his name is Crimus. Next, all of these animals will get health checks, and if you're interested in adopting, most shelters have online applications.
That adoption event that Betty mentioned is going to be next Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It takes place at the Berkeley Humane Society that's located on 9th Street. Moving now to the debate over driverless cars, Cruise has agreed to cut its robo-taxi operation in San Francisco in half. As Dahlin shows us, the company's decision follows a pair of crashes that occurred just hours apart.
This crash happened early Friday morning in the Mission. San Francisco police say this Cruise robo-taxi entered the intersection on a green light when a Dodge Charger plowed into the self-driving car. Cruise says the driverless car detected the Charger before the impact and braked.
You just hear like a loud skr and like it's just boom. We're like, uh-oh, is someone injured? And we kind of just rushed over here.
The crash so loud, Harry Porce and his roommate heard it from their apartment 1 block away.
The Dodge was completely totaled. I mean, it was just wiped. There's fluid leaking everywhere. Airbags were all deployed and it seemed scary, you know, and fortunately the person was okay and no injuries.
San Francisco police do not suspect DUI in this crash.
The human-operated vehicle had likely run a red light, resulting in the collision. So in this case, the autonomous vehicle did not appear to be at fault for the collision.
But they do believe Crews was at fault for this collision with a fire engine in the Tenderloin. Happened 2 hours before, around 10:20 p.m. Thursday night. Officers say a San Francisco fire truck was responding to an emergency and collided with the robotaxi at Polk and Turk Streets. No injuries to firefighters. They say the driverless Crews had the green light. Paramedics transported a passenger in the robotaxi to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries.
The fire engine was operating in a Code 3 emergency mode with lights and sirens. And it's really a reminder to everyone that you are required to yield, whether it's a vehicle driven by a human operator, an autonomous vehicle.
The collisions came a day after city leaders asked state regulators to halt the expansion of robotaxis. They say self-driving cars still have a lot of technical bugs and are not ready for prime time.
I'm against it. I feel like it's just not ready.
Harry admits robots don't drive distracted and they don't drink and drive. But he argues robots can't think and react fast to police scenes like this. This self-driving car was stuck behind police tapes for about 5 minutes earlier this week.
I don't agree with them. I don't think they're safe. And even if they do promise all of these things, at the end of the day, they're just robots and they're eventually going to mess up too.
Crews says it's looking into both of those incidents. On Friday, city leaders asked state regulators to hit pause on the expansion of the robotaxi program. Now, state regulators just gave them the green light for that expansion last week. You may also remember the mess in North Beach after Outside Lands last weekend. Several Crews vehicles, they just stalled because of a connectivity issue. In another mishap, a car got stuck in wet concrete this week. As we mentioned earlier, at the DMV's request and until further notice, the company will have no more than 50 driverless cars in operation during the day and 150 at night. The DMV says in a statement that it could suspend or revoke the company's permits if its own investigation finds, quote, unreasonable risk to the public. Coming up, wildfires in Washington state are forcing thousands of people to evacuate. The flames have already destroyed several homes in one hard-hit community. And Canada's military assists with evacuation efforts in the Northwest Territories as a fire threatens the capital city in that particular province. Here's a live look outside before we head to break. We'll be right back.